Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Logan.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Yes, hello, it is Monday, it is 6:30pm, it is a new year, new Rangers possibly. Well, welcome to the Rangers Journal. Tonight we're going to be looking back on the weekend's fantastic Old Firm thrashing, where we once again beat Celtic on their own patch. That's twice in a row we've done that, scoring 3 goals both times, and meaning that Celtic haven't won a league Old Firm encounter since September 2024. We are on 173 wins to their 172. We are level on points, both 3 behind league leaders Hearts. It's safe to say there is a title race on, thanks to Danny Rule. And thanks to Willie Naultsy, the man who was relieved of his duties at Parkhead today after spending 33 days in the role. That is 16 days less than Liz Truss was in power. We're told the treatment of Martin was shocking. However, we were 9th, miles behind him, and we gave him the summer window and 122 days to see if it was going to work. They threw their toys out the pram, being 3 points behind a decent Hearts side and level, yes, level with us, and still in a clear shout of the league after sweeping up most trophies every year for the better part of this millennium. Self-entitlement much? Well, there we go. Tonight we'll revisit that win on Saturday that ended Dauncey's reign, but first we're going to take a deep dive into our £8 million man, Yusuf Chermiti, the man who was a questionable signing for the cost, a man whose career path hasn't really set the heather alight, a man who we were told by Kevin Thelwell and no one else that he will come good. The game of his life with a double at the Theatre of Screams. Is Chermiti turning into that player we all dream of him to be? Or is this a little bit of a purple patch? Well, we're going to delve into that this evening with a fantastic panel to do so. So, first of all, Ryan, you are joining us for this one tonight. How are you doing?
Doing fine, mate. Doing fine. I was back at work today, so it was pretty devastated this morning. The 7:30 alarm clock rang, and it obviously was met with an F off from myself. So, but I was good through it. The only way is up now.
The only way is up, as Yaz once said. Yeah, my alarm was 3:10 this morning, and it was like -4 outside, and yeah, I was not liking it. But what made it all that worthwhile, when I was going through the corridor, I saw a fellow chum who's a Celtic fan walk in, see me, turn around and go completely the other way. So it was worth it just for that. But yeah, good to have you on, Ryan. And Richard, long time no see. Happy New Year, my friend. I assume you're doing well after the fantastic result of the weekend.
Happy New Year to you, pal. Yeah, I'm doing well. Had a good festive period and a good end to it at the weekend. Looking forward to more tomorrow, hopefully, if the game's on. But yeah, I'm doing well, mate.
Yeah, we're all hoping and praying that game does go ahead, because we'll end up having about 5 Aberdeen games to play in blooming 2 weeks, I think, if that happens. But yeah, no, good to see you again, Richard. And Craig, last but not least, how you doing, my friend? You good?
Yes, mate, I'm doing well. All better for Saturday. Everything's going well for me. I have not. I say I haven't returned to work. I haven't actually stopped, to be fair. So, but I wasn't in today, and I did not have an alarm clock to wake me up. So I'm doing good there. But aye, everyone's good, mate. Everyone's good.
Oh, that's good. At least, to be fair, you're not working on the day that nobody wants to work, which is that first Monday back in January. It's definitely one of the worst to work. And hello to everyone in the comments. Do get your comments in tonight. We are going to be delving into the questions from everyone a little bit later on. We are going to talk about Chermiti first, though. Obviously, the title of the pod, Nancy Boys beaten by Chermiti. Before we start with that, tonight's pod is proudly sponsored by the good guys over at the Bluebells Bar, Puerto del Carmen, in glorious Lanzarote. So when you are over in sunny Spanish Canary Islands, you'll find a warm welcome at the only Rangers bar in Puerto del Carmen. It's family friendly, eat, drink, chill, party, and yes, they'll show every Rangers game live. There's nothing better than watching the Bears in the scorching heat. So when in Lanzarote, do pop in and say hi. I do hear a former Celtic manager's handed in his CV there, as they do hear that some bar work is going. Now, let's get to it. So this, obviously, we're talking about Yusuf Chermiti, Ryan. It is fair to say that Yusuf Chermiti has been a bit of a divisive, I say a divisive character. It's probably the wrong description, really. Nobody ever wishes a Rangers player doesn't do well. But there was a lot of question marks raised in regards to the signing at the time. It was a lot of money to spend on one striker, a striker that we are told that had potential, but there was not really any stats to back it up. Under 20 Portuguese international was probably the one thing. Obviously signed for Everton and kind of hadn't really achieved much there. How did you feel about Chermiti at the time? Obviously, I'm probably asking a very obvious question, but how did you feel when Chermiti was brought in? Did you think did you see anything there at the time that you think, oh, you know what, this could be a good transfer, or were you among the rest of us?
Expensive and surprised that we spent that amount of money and that level of percentage of what was our summer transfer budget on the guy. I thought it was a massive risk at the time. So we signed somebody for £8.5 million. We expect them to come in running. We, as a club, I don't think we spend £8.5 million on a player that she probably described as a project player. So I was very surprised at that time that we spent that level of money. I thought we'd have went a little bit more cautious, a little bit more kind of tried and trusted. So it's ultimately cost Kevin Thelby his job without jumping too far ahead. But I was very surprised.
Yeah, very surprised indeed. Richard, we saw the early embers of Chermiti, didn't we? And being completely honest, we didn't really see too much there. There was a moment which eventually came from that goal against Kilmarnock, which, we've got to be honest, the keeper, he did make a bit of a dog's dinner of it, but we hadn't really seen much from him in an attacking sense. A lot of his striking was quite limp, wasn't it?
It was, and the unfortunate thing for him is he's a young guy, to be fair, and he's coming in with that pressure of it's not his fault the amount that the club's agreed, the fee that was paid. Some people clearly see something in him. He was at Sporting Lisbon, so they clearly saw something in him. Everton, Farewell, whatever, saw something in him in some way. So coming in with that pressure, with that fee, there's a lot of expectation. And to be fair, we weren't seeing it at all. A few glimpses now and then up till that game. But I'm hopeful now. I know you will go into it, but we've seen a lot more from him with regards to his whole performance. Goals still are what counts and what matters the most. We're going to need to see a lot more of that. But from that Kilmarnock game, as you say, where he got his goal, and maybe that's just the catalyst they needed. He's not really been a regular starter. He's not really cemented that place. But from that game, he started to slowly win the fans over, I think. And it's still a long way to go, to be honest, to win them all over completely and justify the outlay. But from that moment, I'd agree with you, mate. It's where we start to show that actually, we might have a player on our hands potentially.
Yeah, no, definitely, Richard. As Richard was saying there, clubs like, the clubs in Portugal and being a Portuguese unders international, you got something about you to be in that position. You're not just some random person off the street. As one of the comments says here, from Cassie B3, I think what he said in his interview is he hadn't really played in 2 years, so he needed the games. Do you think that is probably a big part of it? He actually just needed to actually play proper first team football, not reserve or unders football, and just try and get himself into some sort of form, and that can take a little bit longer. We've seen it before, haven't we? Players like Bona Barisic, where it took a long time for him to actually kind of cement a place, and then suddenly hit the ground running with that goal against St Mirren, and then that was it. He didn't look back until about 2 seasons later. But is that all it is, do you think?
Potentially, because as you say, Barisic, there's other players that really got off to a slow start and managed to pick up. The thing is, it feels like it's kind of been brewing for a little while. Is overall, Richard touched on, his overall play has been getting better, has been more consistent. His hold up with the ball has gotten better. His link up play has gotten better. He was always just missing those goals, and that was my biggest thing with him, is he was missing that goal scoring kind of edge to him. No better place and better game to find it than away at Celtic. But it's the one game. You know, if he plays tomorrow, if anyone plays tomorrow, but if the game's on tomorrow and he plays and he drops another stinker in front of goal, you know, you're gonna have to maybe rein in all the praise you're giving him. But everyone wants this guy to succeed. Everyone needs this guy to succeed. He could play a big part in the second half of the season if he really kicks on from this. And of course, we all hope he does.
Yeah, no, we all do hope he does. Correct. Great comment from Doug. Thirlwell hung his hat on him and paid the price when he didn't hit the ground running. If he can kick on, some of Thirlwell's fate could be repaid. Obviously, liked him taking him to two big clubs. I can't even read tonight. I'm still on the booze from Saturday. That's what that is. But no. What do you reckon, Ryan? You look at, obviously, you spoke there about £8 million at that time. We didn't really have time for a project player as a striker. I think you can have a project player, like, for example, when you look at somebody like Hamza Egeman, who cost just over £1 million. If you've got other strikers that are available and you can slowly kind of get him in the team, do you think that was possibly the plan, that Chermiti wasn't going to be the straight away and out striker, or you think, as Doug says, Thirlwell hung his hat on him and this was going to be the main man straight away?
Probably, you probably think that Chermiti, although the price tag was heavier, that Majowski was probably signed to be the number one striker for us. When you look at Majowski's history in the country and what he's done in the past at Aberdeen, you probably would, if you put the two of them together without the start of the season, not knowing anything about the money that's been paid, you would probably think that Majowski, just by stats and experience and everything that's there, would be the starting player. And it's obviously not working out for Bojan for one reason or another. And Chermiti, thankfully, is starting to step up and improve himself there. You just have to look at it's such a massive risk. You look at Egeman as a risky signing. It's something that the boy's never been away from his home country, and you've risked £1 million on him. And it's just taking time. It sometimes takes strikers time to find their feet and to get to know their teammates, and sometimes it takes their teammates a little bit of a time to actually get to know them as well. So you look at McCoist, when he was signed in '83, didn't hit the ground running at all, had to fight for his place. With Maurice Johnson as well coming into the club and almost taking his jersey off him permanently. Even Alfredo Morelos took a while to settle. He was constantly finding himself offside, and if he wasn't offside, he was sitting in the stands because he got himself sent off. So strikers who have came and done really well for us in the past, sometimes come with a wee bit of jitters at the start. So hopefully that time is now done, and all that's going to happen now is he's just going to progress and he's going to carry on getting standing ovations from the Bears as he's leaving the park.
Standing ovations, indeed. It's amazing how you can become an instant hero doing what you do at Parkhead like that. But yeah, no, definitely do agree. I like the comparison there to Morelos in a sense, because Morelos definitely, Richard, had a bit of a psychological problem with Old Firm games. He was a very good all-round striker, a bit hot-headed, but we knew we were onto something good with Alfie. But there was just that one thing, that little monkey on his shoulder, which was scoring in Old Firm games, and it took him about 3 years to actually finally break it. Even with a penalty, even with some glaring misses, it really got inside his head, didn't it? And that's something Chermiti now has got off his back very quickly, essentially. I can only do him wonders, can it?
Absolutely. Well, I think we shouldn't really compare the two, to be honest, because as much as Alfredo took a long time to score against Celtic, he was scoring against everybody else in the league. He was scoring, great goals in Europe, in Europe, particularly. I think it was against Porto from the box outside of his foot, or just inside it. So as much as we look at Chermiti's been getting stick because he's not been scoring at all, whereas Morelos was still scoring, but just not against Celtic. So it is difficult, but you can see the sort of some of the comparisons with him. But for Chermiti now, he needs to really use this as a catalyst to build upon. We also need to be careful. You still need to remember he's a 21-year-old kid. I remember what I was like at 21 years old, having the pressure of 50,000 people on my back to score goals is, I'm not sure I'd be able to cope with it. Or who could? but that's what he's there to do. That's what he gets paid for. We also need to realise that we can't hang our hat on him all the time. We've spent a good amount of money on Miovski. He needs to come in and help and chip in with the goals. But I am hopeful that this really is going to be the catalyst for him, because it is a big outlay. There is potential there. Kavanagh, in his interview a few months ago, sort of was really nonchalant about the amount of money that was spent in Scottish football. That's a huge outlay. He didn't really seem that fussed. Said it's going to be the norm. That's something to look forward to as us as fans. So perhaps that expectation of bigger signings will diminish in future. But at the minute, it's all on Chermiti, and he's got a monkey off his back straight away. He had a good game, scored 2 good goals. Confidence has got to be high. Enjoy it, but he's got to build upon it.
He has got to build upon it indeed. Well said, well said. Craig, we're going to have a look at some stats in a minute, kind of some breakdown of information that's been collated from Y-Scout. But before we kind of just go into that, was there anything that quite surprised you about Chermiti's game there at the weekend? Obviously, we'll go to the Old Firm game just a little bit later, but was there anything that really surprised you? Now, obviously, the glaring one is probably the goals, but was there anything else that you saw in his game that had improved in recent weeks there?
I mean, there's things that have improved over recent weeks, as I already mentioned. I think his hold-up play and his link-up play is improved massively over the past, certainly since maybe the start of December, going on till now, which is something I think he needed, that building blocks of, getting his confidence back, which is kind of putting the whole thing together. And the last thing is starting to score goals, which is what he's doing, or what he done at the weekend, and will look to do from now on. But there's loads of things, is even his pressing. I thought his pressing, he was really energetic. I think he put Schmeichel and the Celtic centre halves under pressure as much as he possibly could. I think his overall work with Mikey Moore, with Gassama, with the other midfielders certainly in the second half, not so much the first half. We kind of struggled in the first half. But yeah, it's just all these things have been coming together, and it's kind of peaked now, or I say peak. It's peaked now with 2 goals, but hopefully it continues. It doesn't just peak and go off. Hopefully it continues to go further for him, and I'm sure it will. I'm sure Danny Roll. He had a similar thing with Miovski. Miovski had scored a few goals. He was quite unlucky. He got injured. Hopefully he can push on with Chermiti. Chermiti can get a good run in the team. And again, it's just what it is scoring goals. That's it. People are wanting an £8 million striker to score 20, 30 goals a season. The guy's on four, sorry. The guy's on 4, and it's now January. So it's just, it hasn't been good up to now, but there's nothing to say now after that performance at the weekend can turn 180 degrees and he can start really banging them in.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think his form is going in the right way. So breaking down those stats, he's played 14 matches and he's scored 4 goals now. So that equals 0.5 goals there. So 2 assists as well, which has come in recent weeks. He's got an XG though of 0.3, which I think kind of breaking down over that time, I think a lot of his attempts leading up to that were quite, we've got to say it, they were quite limp a lot of the time. Anytime we saw them, anytime he would be in front of goal. Goal conversion rate, 19.05%. So looking at them stats there, Ryan, if you were just to look at those on paper right now, you wouldn't be too happy with those, would you?
No, but I don't think it's a fair reflection. I think you look at these stats at the end of the season, if you were to look at other players in the team, their stats won't be that dissimilar to what his stats are. So I don't think it's fair to call him out on these. The team in general has struggled for long periods of the season. And as things do get better, we look at these stats at the end of the season. I think that'd be more than fair on the boy. But it's just he is getting better. And I think overall, we spoke about the number or the lack of creation within the team, and his XG being down at 0. Is it 0.3? I think you said his XG was. It just shows you the lack of creativity that's within the team. So Danny Rose now starting to find the recipe. You know, it was great to go away to our biggest rivals and get 3 goals. We need to repeat that again tomorrow night. Let's go for goals. Let's win games. You know, let's go out and start winning games convincingly. You know, we're scraping 1-0s and 2-1s, and we were taking 0-0 draws against Falkirk at Ibrox. We're still very much in the race here. We're still very much in the fight. So we now need to start building on that, find form, recruit.
Can I? Sorry to interrupt me. I thought you were finished here, Ryan. Andrew, if you don't mind, can I ask a question for you, Ryan, and maybe for everybody else watching? You just said about Chermiti and his stats and see what they are at the end of the season. For you, what would you find acceptable? You know, what sort of goal ratio, or we can't just look at that. Obviously, his overall play, but for you and maybe the rest of the guys and those watching, what would you find acceptable from Chermiti this season?
I mean, I'm looking for a goal a game from a Rangers striker. That's for me. That's where I would like to see. If you're talking the kind of money that's been spent, I'm looking for 35, 40 goals a season for a Rangers striker. But it has to be a Rangers striker within a good team. A Rangers striker in a poor team is probably giving you like Desser's numbers, like 25 a season. But in a successful team that's creating chances and winning games, I'm expecting 40. Being honest, I think that's the kind of numbers that McCoy's hit when he was in a good Rangers team. So that's the kind of numbers. That's the levels I would hope for. As far as kind of other things like XG and stuff like that, it's a wee bit kind of pie there. His play outside the box for me is almost as important as his play inside the box, especially when he's playing as a lone striker. But I think I'm looking for a goal return. If he can get to 20 by the end of the season, provided that other people are contributing in the goal scoring charts, for me, I think that's successful. And it's something to build on. Like you said, particularly yourself, Richard, he's a young guy. He's 21 years old. He's a kid. So, you know, at 21-year-old, he's going into a foreign country. He's going to obviously in a really kind of difficult environment and difficult circumstances. If you said to me 20 goals at the end of the season, I think I'd take your hand off for it.
Yeah, no, good answer, Ryan. Craig, what do you reckon? What are you looking for goal-wise for Chermiti between now and the end of the season, realistically?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. You're looking for this guy to score 20 to 30. So you're in that sort of same ballpark. Because the guy is now at a position where probably you are gonna, now that things are starting to gel with Danny Rose being there for a few months, you probably are going to see more chances created, but you are also going to get guys like Mikey Moore and Miofsky, maybe Gassama, maybe Asgard, anyone else. I don't know. Whoever else you want to throw in is be getting a fair few chances as well. So the onus isn't all going to be on him. But I think from now to the end of the season, if he can hit 20, especially now that you're looking at, there's going to be less games now that we're not in Europe. You know, we're used to playing 50, 60 games, going deep into Europe. That's not going to happen this year. So if you look at 20 to 30, I think between now and the end of the season, I think you have to take that as a success.
Yeah, do you know what? I'd have to agree there. I think the way the season started, obviously he's played 14 games already. He's now only really got up to speed. Well, it appears he's only up to speed now. I think 80 to 20 would be a fairly decent return between now and the end of the season if he could do it. Again, though, as Ryan says, and as Craig touches on there as well, I think you need a good team around you as well. And this is where the January transfer window's got to help. Don't get me wrong, we've still got Oliver Antman to come back. Granted, we didn't really see too much from him apart from when the second he joined, he was brilliant and then just dropped off a cliff like every other player did in the team. But that just seems to be, I think, something to do with almost football being coached out them. That there are players in that team that I think can be creative and help more, like Gassama. I think Gassama is still a little bit lackluster and not doing enough when it comes to creativity. But with players like Mike Moore, hopefully being fit and on the game, I think it could help. But I think also it's not just the stuff that's around him. I think that he's now better at holding the ball, and you notice now, especially in the Old Firm game on Saturday, where when the ball in the first half was being punted up to him, he was generally getting the ball and bringing it down, but of course he was quite isolated and he was ragdolling the defenders. So you can see that strength. You can see he's got a bit of pace about him as well. A lot of comparisons with his second goal with Daniel Kuzan, and you can see why. He just absolutely blew in and took the finish so composed. I'm hoping that is him, not just in some little purple patch. I hope that's him now up to speed and we see a bit more from him? Oh, that's a good question, Richard. Very good question. Right, let's have a look at some stats from Chermiti then. So we've got a slide put together from the guys in the background used with Scout. So you can see there kind of Chermiti's stats, and actually some are actually quite strong. Now you might not be able to see all this clearly, especially if you are watching on like a mobile device, so please head to YouTube on your telly, you'll see it a little bit better, but I do have it here as well, so I can read out some. I'll come to you, Richard, because I missed you out there. I don't know if you can see that well, but is there anything that really sticks out for you there? If you want me to read anything out for you, you can do that, pal.
Accurate passes. So what was that at? Is that 94%?
94.87, so just under 95%.
And with shots on target is at what, 94% as well?
Shots on target 94.87 as well. Yeah, quite surprising stats, aren't they?
They are. Maybe just to help everybody else and me, can you explain that graphic to me? So when you're saying shots on target, is that since he's been at Rangers? Since
he's been at Rangers, yes. So
yeah, okay. His matches played.
Yeah, in his 14 matches played, that's kind of the stats that's kind of been collated with him. For people that aren't familiar with the kind of stats wheel. Now, obviously, you mentioned there accurate passes and shots on target. Could that just be the case of when it comes to accurate passes, maybe Ryan, is it maybe he's played the easy ball, or is he actually playing some nice kind of attacking passes? What would you say from that, what you've seen from the eye test?
He's probably just collecting the ball for us higher up the park. He's the target man, he's the outlet. So with the likes of Raskin, Butland, all these guys are looking to get the ball into the opponent's half. He's the guy that are hitting, and he's just asking for guys to get closer to him. The likes of, we're speaking about Gassama, Asgard, Barron will just come and collect the ball off him at a short distance. He's not been asked to, play Hollywood passes. He's just been asked to bring the ball down and get the team further up the park. So it looks as if it's going okay from that respect.
Yeah, no, definitely. Anything in there that surprises you, Craig? I don't know if you can see that well. If you need to read anything out, just let me know.
Nothing overly surprising. I just think it looks, for everything that we've seen from him, and this is probably why we talk about the differences between people who view football in stats and people who view football with an eye test. This looks a hell of a lot better than you would ever have assumed that it would have been. Offensive duels, certainly. I mean, if you're talking, when you say offensive duels, if you're talking about aerial battles, aerial duels, I can see that being quite high because he is quite good at that. But these sorts of, a lot of these stats, just look a lot better than you would ever have assumed that they would have been. But yeah, there's not much more I can really add to it. I'm just going through it now. I've managed to maximize it so I can kind of see it better. I'm just going, my eyes are going around the wheel, just looking at things. But yeah, no, it looks really good, and for someone who I would say has only played really well for maybe about a month and a bit, considering this is his full season and he's been in and out, the team fairly regularly. He's had a lot of minutes. This looks a lot better than I would ever have thought it would have.
Yeah, no. The things there, as pointed out in the comments, which is interesting, was as Andrew's saying here, almost the best in the league for non-penalty goals per 90 minutes. Ryan, would that just kind of highlight the quality in the league at the minute? There's not a lot of teams scoring a lot of goals in the league at the minute, is there? I think there's a lot of teams in a similar situation. Are some of these stats just a little bit different this year when you look at things like that, non-penalty goals per 90 minutes?
Yeah, maybe it's also a sign that the referees have got their fingers burnt for giving too many silly penalties and stuff. Or there's certainly quite a few contentious penalty awards as well, so it's maybe just a wee point towards that as well, that the referees aren't being as generous in that respect as they normally are. Probably the weirdest stat, I think, is the fact that he's 6'4" and his headed goals are just there. So he's probably as tall as, if not taller, than the vast majority of the players that he's playing against, but he seems to have a head like 50 pence. So maybe that's something part of his game that he can work on for us.
Maybe you can ask Fernandez for some tips on that, because he seems to be quite good with the headed goals. But yeah, we'll tell you what, we'll come back to a little bit about Chermiti in a little bit. For me, the big improvements have been the stuff he was doing off the ball. Now, I to be honest, didn't expect a goal from him at the weekend, and didn't expect two either. I thought that I did think we could get a result. I think we all were pretty confident of us being able to do something against that Celtic side at Parkhead. Barry managed to do it last year. They are in disarray at the minute. They concede a lot of goals. But I thought he'd be the guy that holds it up, because there was a lot of talk about in the previous game against St Mirren how well he held the ball up, how well he was having the assist, that great ball in the box. We thought we might be able to utilise him in a slightly maybe different role per se, bringing other people into it. But he's just kind of he just found his shooting boots at the right time, it seems. But Richard, I'm going to come to you, mate. So Old Firm game on Saturday. I know you've probably spoke about it already, but the way that we started that game, it looked in the first few minutes that we were, it looked like we were actually quite advanced. We were quite compact. We were kind of up the other end of the park. We haven't really done much though, but it was actually a positive start for the first 5 minutes, wasn't it?
First 5-10 minutes, yeah, played really well. Looked as we grew it. Well, we started well. We done okay. People have been going on about the Asgard foul and how that really, the yellow card, and how that stifled his game, to be honest. But I think that's people, in my opinion, I think that's people using it as an excuse for his poor performance, to be honest. Perhaps there was an element because he gets sent off previously. I don't know, but he's not, from what I saw of Asgard, particularly in the first half, and I don't want to focus just solely on him, but I know somebody said it in the comments before. That's the way he's been playing pretty much every game. He's came up with a couple of goals, but he's shown in glimpses that he's a bit of a player, but that's about it. He's never really dominated in midfield. He's just had these little glimpses where we think, oh, is there a player in there? And that's been it from him. And I thought that was very much the same in the first half. So I'm personally not buying into the yellow card stifled him, although the yellow card definitely frustrated maybe after 6 minutes. But like I say, yeah, overall we started well, but then particularly down the right hand side and that crossfield ball that we just couldn't seem to do anything about, and the way that we were pressing, you could within 20 minutes we all seen that the pressing tactics were wrong. Thankfully, it changed in the second half, which I'd rather talk about, to be honest.
Yeah, no, definitely. It became a very familiar thing to see now. Ryan, that Celtic side hadn't done well. It's obviously lost the amount of games that it's lost, 6 and 8. Well, after the game it was 6 and 8. Before that it was 5 and 7. But then they just suddenly we give them a little bit of confidence. They started to move the ball around. We weren't closing them down. I think they realised after we kind of came at them a little bit, we weren't really doing anything with it. So they kind of turned the screw a bit, kind of got forward, and Jack Butler was called into action a couple of times. Heart in the mouth stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, let's be honest. We were on the ropes. And if they'd scored a second goal, I don't see a way back from this. Testament to the goalies, did a good save before they've scored their goal. I think their goal's very much preventable, but the boy's taken it well and he smashed it high into the box. But the second save that Butland has down to his right from Kenny is a real big save, a real big moment for us, and it may be one that we look back on at the end of the season and say that was a real big moment from you and we really needed you to do it. So, but any other, I think we're just lucky to get in at 1-0. And if you'd said to me at half time, we're going to go away with this today, we're going to take 3 points, I'd have been shocked, but obviously delighted. But I thought we were really, really up against it, and I'm glad that they managed to hold out.
Yeah, glad indeed. Sadly, a goal came, which it still annoys me now thinking about it. It was very much a bit of a FIFA goal where no players committed. Now, obviously, as Richard was talking about, obviously Asgard was on a yellow card, but I don't think that's fully the case of that he kind of then felt, you know, I know you look at obviously the League Cup game where he did get sent off. Maybe there's something in his head, but I don't think it was all that. He just doesn't really seem suited to these games where they're quite open. And you could see the mess from the throw in from Yang. Kind of comes back to him. Asgard kind of is about a yard away from him. What annoys me is Raskin. When Raskin kind of half-heartedly tries to go in, and then I have to say it, as good as Jack Butland has been, there's still a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde from Butland, I have to say, Richard. And with that goal, I think he could have done a little better. Granted, he has hit it absolutely sweet. It is a daisy cutter. He's put his laces through it. But there were so many points of failure before Butland. I can't really put it all on him. But a poor goal, wasn't it?
It was, mate. And as much as, yeah, you're right. Looking at it, Butland should have saved it, but it shouldn't have even got to him in the first place. It was a good shot. It was a powerful shot. So those sort of goals do go in. So I'm not going to blame Butland too much, but you'd be disappointed to losing it. But the type of goal, and I got to admit, once it went in, because they were in the ascendancy, I felt that I was, head in my hands, fearing the worst, because I genuinely thought they'd go on and score another. But thankfully, you got to admit that as much as, we're looking at Butland being at fault or taking some of the blame, at least for the first goal, he certainly made up for it in the first half. He genuinely kept us in the game.
He did, and he did that, yeah. And I think it's a mixture of he did well, he did all he could to stop the shots that came in, especially the one from Kenny. But I think as well, if you've got some informed strikers, they probably do a little bit better in that respect. Luckily, they didn't. One of the few occasions we got forward, Craig, in that half, we kind of come into it a little bit. We do it sometimes when it gets towards the end of the half. We suddenly start coming alive a little bit, and it's a bit annoying because then the stings comes out of it at half time. But it was Gassama cutting into the box. He's got a couple of options. I dink it over the keeper or go around the keeper, and maybe hopefully that Schmeichel kind of being a bit, what do I use? A bit slower and a bit bigger, a bit more clumsier now than what he used to be. You're hoping maybe that he tries to get the ball and misses it and gives away a penalty. Not that we ever really get one at Celtic Park. But do you think Gassama's lucky with that chance where he dinks it over? And I guess Schmeichel does what any keeper does. You just got to make yourself big and hope you get something on it. And he did, and it just managed to go wide.
Yeah. I think he was unlucky. I'm not 100% sure what else he's supposed to do there. He needs to get to the ball first. I think if he's under control of it more, he can maybe go down the route of trying to take it round them and seeing if there's a foul. But I think when he's running onto the ball like that, and he needs to get there first because Schmeichel's coming out as well, I think all he can do is try and dink it over him. And Schmeichel, to be fair to him, doesn't commit and just go to ground. He keeps himself quite big and managed to get his hand on it and then managed to palm it just wide. But yeah, if that had went in, I think things could have switched a lot quicker because they were really bad under Nancy of just conceding a goal and dropping their heads and completely capitulating. Case in point, what happened in the second half. Yeah, I think it could have been different, but I don't think there was much more he could have done about that. Schmeichel was smart enough, just about there to keep it out.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. As long as you get on target, that's all you can do. If you would have put it over the bar or into OZ, I think you're a bit more angry because it's a great chance spurned. But he's done what he can there, and it looks like it's going in. And my God, that took about 10 minutes to kind of drop down, didn't it? It gave us a little bit to build on, and obviously we scored offside. Mikey Moore put the ball in the net, Ryan, but obviously it was clearly offside. There were about 5 players offside in one there. But Do you think that gave us a little bit of the kick up the backside for half time? I was down at the London branch and I was speaking with the guys there and I said, you know what, anytime we've seen Danny Rule this season, generally speaking, he sorts a lot out at half time. He's not as pragmatic during the game, but it seems that he does seem to sort out a lot at half time. Did you feel that was going to be the case?
Yeah, I mean, there was a wee kind of a clip when the camera went to him. I think it was around about the kind of 30th minute. I was screaming at him to get Asgard off the park after about half an hour. But there's a wee cut to him and he's sitting with his assistant. He's got his pen and paper in his hand and he's looking at his iPad and he's just sussed them out by the looks of it. And it was something as simple as stop Asgard playing as a 10 and bring Diamandi and go just straight 3 against a straight 3 in the middle of the park. And it was simple and effective and it just nullified McGregor, which was the kind of key to winning the game is sit on Callum McGregor. If you sit on Callum McGregor, you're going to stop them playing and get Anthony Ralston, which they did for the second goal. So that's two very, very simple and effective things. But it's very psychological. Getting that goal, getting the ball in their net before half time is psychological. Yes, it was offside, 4 or 5 players, like you said, offside, but it proves that we can do it. It proves that we can get the ball into the back of their net. And even when I played amateur goalkeeping, even if I knew somebody was shooting at me, even if it didn't count and the whistle had already gone, I still stopped the ball getting into the back of the net because it's psychological that you're not putting the ball past me today. So, and I think that did help. One thing that frustrates me, and I'm sure it frustrates everyone else, why does he not just put his flag up straight away? Why does the ball manage to find itself in there? As a general kind of rule, obviously maybe it came to our advantage, as I was just saying about the psychological side of it, but one of these days somebody's going to get hurt. One of these days somebody's going to get quite seriously injured when an obvious offside is apparent. Just stop the game. It's going to happen. Just get it going.
Do you know what? I know where you're coming from there. Because yeah, somebody's going to slide in off the line and collide with a goalpost or something, and stopping something within the net. I think that's the whole thing now. It's the way the laws of the game are now, isn't it? It's obviously they can't raise the flag until the ball's out of play or in the net in case they've missed something. But when it is clear and obvious, it's almost like we're telling linesmen now not to do their job that they're actually there for, because you still want your linesman to be able to be that trained eye to put your flag up straight away when something is clearly offside, because you can't always be relying on technology. How many times we've had a couple of times where VAR has gone down, it's happened at the National Stadium, it's happened in other games, and they've gone, oh well, we can't actually look at that now. And I do find a lot of officials do that now when they really are, and don't get me wrong, if you're unsure of something then you can't give something, so that's fair enough, but some people have seen something and go, oh, I might want a second look at that, so I'm not going to say anything. But then it comes to that thing where, actually, is it a clear and obvious error? Well, no, it's a kind of 50-50. So I think sometimes it can almost influence a decision, so to speak, because one's relying on one, one's relying on the other. It becomes a bit of a mess sometimes. I do know where you're coming from, and player safety should come first. But in that second half, Richard, did you expect the start from Rangers in that second half and the kind of monumental kind of falling off a cliff from them? Do you think they thought the game was won and they would just continue what they were doing? Obviously saw Nancy kind of switched Yang over where Sterling was, which was a bit of a weird one because Yang actually was having one of his best games ever, and when you go to goal, you are probably going to go, right, let him cook, let him do what he can do, he's having a good game, but then he switched him over to where Sterling was on the other side, and Sterling was just having a great game, wasn't he? He kept my head in his back pocket, very good at getting in front of people when they're running and just taking the ball off of them and going back the other way. Did you expect that, the way that we started the second half and kind of the way that Celtic did as well?
I expected changes because Rowe, ever since he's joined the club, he's made changes frequently at halftime. You know, he sees something, and this is what appeals why we're all getting behind Rowe, because he's making the glaring obvious changes that we can all see in the stands and watching the game on the TV. We can see, you know, where the issues are, and he seems to be making them straight away, whereas previous managers, you know, stuck by their guns and haven't done that. So I did expect changes, and it was the one I was hopeful of, being Asgard coming off for Diomandi, is what I think pretty much every single Rangers supporter was calling for as well. So it wasn't unexpected. The Celtic changes were, I can't say, I monitor what their manager had been doing and how many changes they make at half time, but it was unusual, and it's, you know, God, I'm going to miss the bloke for it, to be honest, in his bizarre changes and why he done it, and but I don't know. But it certainly helped us. Made it, I'm not going to say that it made a difference to us because we changed our game. So I'd like to think that we won it ourselves rather than their errors. We won it from our own tactics and formation. But yeah, Sterling was playing an absolute blinder. Diomande really did make the difference because he just does a lot of the dirty work that's not obvious, and he puts in a hell of a more of a shift than what Asgard does, who just certainly doesn't look like he ever gets out of second gear. But yeah, the pressing, the way they've done things dramatically in the second half instantly improved the team. And to answer your question more bluntly, was I surprised by the changes? No, I wasn't, because that's what Rowe just seems to be able to do. He seems to be able to make the changes. He's not sticking with, a philosophy or a system. He's saying we need to win the game. What changes can I make to win the game? And that's exactly what we want as fans.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Good assessment. As I say, it's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. And we'll miss that wee tactics board, even if it was for 33 days. But there we go. Craig, obviously you talked about Sterling there. Are you surprised at the way Sterling's come back from injury? He was fantastic. Well, he was kind of grew into. It took a bit of time for him to get used to kind of being a Rangers player and putting some decent performances before his injury. He's had such a long layoff, and then he comes back and kind of picks up where he left off, hasn't he?
Yeah, you're a little bit surprised when a player's away for so long with an injury and then comes back and just slots in as if nothing happened. But no, again, it's one we needed. We needed reinforcements in the defence with Tavernier seemingly. Rowe seems to not want to play Tavernier 2 games in 1 week. I don't know if this is a sign of Tavernier maybe just getting a little bit older. But he doesn't like playing Tavernier 2 games in a week. Suter was injured. Obviously, he's back now as well. But Suter was injured. Giga was away at AFCON. You only had really Manny Fernandez in there. Cornelius is injured and will be for another month or so, I believe. But so we were desperate for cover in that sort of right back centre half area. So yeah, I was surprised at how well he slotted back in. Didn't do himself any good when he got arrested later on that night for his driving, which I think needs to be mentioned, just because of you're expecting a Rangers player to act a certain way off the field, and obviously he hasn't there. Although Danny Rowe has said that he is available and ready for the game. But if you just focus solely on the pitch, I am pleasantly surprised at how well he slotted back in, and hopefully nothing gets in his way of continuing that for the rest of the season.
Hopefully indeed. Now, let's talk about the man that we're talking about, the man of the moment, Ryan Yusuf Chermiti. That goal, now it was a fantastic goal. It looked like he bundled into the net, like any good striker does, running in there. I was too busy celebrating and wearing about 3 points when that went in, that I did not notice until the Sunday that he backheeled that in. What a finish that is.
Yeah, he's taken it brilliant, hasn't he? What if he'd missed it? Imagine what we'd be saying if he'd missed it. But listen, he's got it. He's done the right thing, and it's actually not that dissimilar a run. If you look back at I think it was Motherwell game at Ibrox, he's made that run at the front post, and I think it was Kisama's cut the ball back to Raskin. Raskin's actually scored. He's made a similar dart towards the front post there, not got the ball, obviously found himself in an offside position for Raskin. So I don't know if they've maybe just been looking back in the footage and analysing the game for himself and said, the big man likes a wee dart to the front post on occasion. Let's see if we can find him. And he's got there. He's got to hit his defender. It's one of the kind of most basic things a striker can do is get in front of your marker. Make a run, time your run, get in front of your marker and get the ball into the back of the net. They'll be raging how easily we cut through them because it was a shy. Gisama's found it. Diamande, Raskin run, cut back goal. Very, very simple football from us, but very effective as well. So delighted.
Absolutely delighted indeed, and we started seeing the term the Cherminator, because he just became a completely different player, didn't he, Richard? And you look at his second goal, which didn't come too long after the first one. We were really in the ascendancy. They really collapsed on their own backsides. And obviously the similarities to Kuzan, especially with that goal he scored at Parkhead back, probably when was it, 2010 or something like that. And he's just cutting down that wing. He kind of cuts in. You think, what's he going to do? Is he going to hold it up, lay it off to someone? But that's probably quite a difficult goal for somebody that's not had the confidence when you got all that time to think about what you're going to do. I know I've been in that situation where when you've got too much time, it's sometimes worse because you're thinking, what do I do? But what a finish from him, Richard.
It was really composed, and I know like, they're all moaning about Schmeichel and stuff like that, and to be fair, probably we would if it was the other way around, but you've got to give the big man credit. You know, he got the ball down on goal. Probably Trusty made the decision for him to keep going, because I think if Trusty closed him down, he probably would. Well, you'd like to think he would have squared it to Barron, but strikers being strikers, he might have just took it on himself anyway. But you know, what a finish from the big man. And go back to just what I add in from what we were saying earlier about the stats. I've just picked up something on Rangers Twitter. You know, they've released some stats themselves about Chermiti's performance in the game. Aerials duel. 12, first, highest in the match, successful aerial duels, defensive actions, first in the match, fouls, 1, leading in the match, even tackles, he was joint second for that. He's really put in, outside of his goals, which is obviously the main thing, but he's really put a shift in, and I'm trying not to get, too excited about it, because it's one game, and again, he's a young bloke, but I'm starting to think that we might, possibly have a decent player on the hands that might justify the price tag. I don't think we should put it all on him just yet, because we've spent a decent amount in Miovski. We've got to expect stuff from him. But what a performance from him! Second half especially. It's exactly what we needed. We needed somebody like that. That's what he's brought in to do, and hopefully we can kick on from that.
I totally.
Here's hoping.
Here's hoping. Yeah, no, I totally agree, because we've all been hurt before, haven't we? We see little purple patches sometimes from players and some things. But going through them stats, as you say, it was obviously 2 goals scored, 2 shots on target, so that's a very good shot conversion ratio. Key passes, he's had 1 in the game. 14 duels won, which is something that's quite impressive in this type of game, especially when you look at that first half, because he was the only real one in that kind of attacking area that was kind of able to kind of hold the ball and try and do things. But obviously anytime a pass was laid off, you had players like Mikey Moore in that first half that would lose the ball straight away, and it would come to nothing. But aerial duels won 4, and tackles won 4 as well. So yeah, quite impressive stats from him. And of course, we'll go through the last goal, Craig. Sorry, do you want to say something there, Richard?
Just very briefly, as we're talking about Chermiti and the stats, I'm far from a stats guy. That's why I had to ask the question when you put the chart up. But it'd be interesting to see what his stats were and like heat maps and things like that when he was used under Martin compared to the way Rule was using him. That'd be something I'd be quite interested in looking at and finding out, because it's night and day, the player that he seems to be. Is that just coincidence it's a new manager or not? Who knows? But it'd be interesting to see, I think.
I do agree. I remember seeing the kind of heat map from Rule's first few games, Vice, the average kind of positions from Russell Martin's games, and we were so compact under Martin. We were further back. Under Rule, we were much more advanced, and this was just only in the first few games where it couldn't really change too much too quickly. But you did notice a bit of a difference. But no, I do agree, Richard. That's something we'll definitely have to look at, because it will definitely be interesting to see what has kind of changed with his game and what he's told to do now. Vice under Martin, because under Martin you could see a lot of players were having issues as well. I just think there was a lot more than just the system. I think players have been told to do, and things are getting overcomplicated. I think that's one big problem. Craig, going through that last goal, Mikey Moore obviously didn't have a great first half. Second half he looked a little bit more dynamic, but what a finish from him. He does what he does there, kind of just puts it across. I was going to say Hart, no, Schmeichel, and Schmeichel could have done a little bit better there, but it goes in the right place, right in that bottom corner, and 3-1. And Mikey Moore's celebration's one of the best ones you'll ever see, isn't it?
It was good. I think it's something that he will look back on whatever he does in his career, and I'm sure at 17 years old and having the prospects that Tottenham have for him, I'm sure he'll go on to do some good things. But I think it's something he'll always remember of his time in Scotland, scoring in an Old Firm game, in an away game, celebrating with his supporters. I think is something he'll always look back on with a lot of delight. In terms of the third goal, I want to give Diamande a lot of credit. He drove forward, which is something that you don't see an awful lot from. I think some of his decision making on the ball is horrific, but I think he done really well there to drive forward. He gets cleaned out, and we got the advantage played. A little bit of good refereeing for once. We got the advantage played. Gassama done well to keep the ball and then play it through to Mikey Moore, who made a good run. And in the finish, yeah, I mean, you can't ask much more of Mikey Moore. It's like Gassama in the first half. I don't think there's much more you can ask from him. It's just Mikey Moore gets that little bit of luck and Schmeichel doesn't save it. I think Schmeichel is really poor. I think it's a shot where you don't have to dive. I think it's so close to him. He just moves his legs and he saves it with his feet. I don't think he had to dive and try and get his arms down because it was in such a horrible position, so close to his right leg. Should have just saved it with his leg instead of trying to get his arms down there. And he's one that, as you say, is a lot slower and doesn't always get down very fast as it is anyway. So he should have done better. But matters not. Mikey Moore put the ball in the back of the net, secured the win. Great celebration. Pushed away the police and everything to get into the fans. Fantastic goal, fantastic celebration. We should be all be very happy with that. Tottenham should be very happy with that, to be honest with you, because I think he's showing now that they really have got a good player on their hands that could do a lot for them and earn them a lot of money down the line.
Yeah, I don't really want that second bet. Let's just pretend he's not great. We'll take him off their hands for 500k. We'll do that. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. No, well said, Craig. Well, let's talk about, right, obviously a great result, 3-1 there. It's level on points now with Celtic, 3 points behind Hearts. A lot of work still to do. A lot of work still to do in the January transfer window. But with Chermiti, now, Ryan, a question I'm going to ask you. Did this game suit Chermiti a little bit more yesterday because it was a little bit more open? Do you think that, or is it just Celtic are that bad that made him look good? Do you think any of that comes into play here?
I think certainly their high line that they were playing in, their defensive weaknesses certainly played into his hand. If they'd went with a back four and they had a second centre half, I don't know if his second goal happens, because Trusty's obviously trying to watch Danilo's run, and by the time he actually clocks, not Danilo's, Conor Barron's run, by the time he actually kind of clocks on what's going on here, the big man's in on goal and he's got the ball past Schmeichel and it's in the back of the net. So it will certainly soon. It'll be interesting to see, because now that we're starting to come into better form, starting to play better, starting to score more goals, will teams start parking the bus a little bit more against us? Will teams actually start coming to Ibrox with a little bit more fear and start trying to make things stuffy, rather than what we've been seeing the last kind of few months, where teams have actually been coming out and having a go at us, which is great. It's obviously you don't want to go and see defensive football. You don't want to go and see 10 men behind the ball. You want to go and see fast, entertaining, free-flowing football. But it'll be interesting to see, can he adapt his game? Can he make things more difficult? Can he hold the ball up? Can he find the pockets in behind to score goals? This is something that maybe just needs coached. He's maybe not experienced that in his career. So we'll wait and see what comes of. But I certainly think their weaknesses definitely helped him, and it's just going to bring him more confidence moving forward.
Yeah, I obviously can't count. I was wishful thinking there. 6 points behind Hearts, not 3. There we go. There's too much to look at that league table these days. Doug's saying, no, I need to have another look at that. I'm sure it said earlier, but maybe I'm losing my mind. Obviously, we look to play Aberdeen tomorrow night. Richard, I say look to, because this is already the postponed game due to the League Cup semi-final, and it looked like there's a lot of snow up north. There was some snow down here in England today as well, so there is that possibility it could be an early afternoon call-off tomorrow. Obviously, nothing confirmed yet. It just depends on the weather. How big is it that we get that game played tomorrow?
I think it's going to be ideal that we do get it, just to build on the momentum. We've got the feel-good factor. Confidence is high. Our next game's Sunday, hopefully, depending on the weather, being up there. I think we need to build on this. But even if it's called off, the professional players, they know what they need to do. The confidence should be high regardless if there's a gap in matches. But ideally, the game will get played, and hopefully we can pump them as well.
There we go. Yeah, well, that's it. There's probably no better time to actually play Aberdeen. Obviously, Tellin lost his job yesterday after a poor kind of run of results. Actually, when you look at it, they were rock bottom at the start of the season. It's a bit of a weird one, actually, because they actually had got better, and then they've kind of slumped a little bit again. They're obviously the current Scottish Cup holders. But there we go. He's out the door. So if we do play tomorrow, Craig, it'll be against an interim boss. But speaking of interim bosses, I was just kind of keeping an eye on the news, and I did see one article from Anthony Joseph from Sky Sports saying that Sean Maloney will take first team training tomorrow, while the club hierarchy, if there's any of them left, are working on an interim boss. And then Ben Jacobs has confirmed that Martin O'Neill will be the manager until the end of the season and will be supported by Sean Maloney and Mark Fotheringham as assistants. So it looks like they're kind of going back to what they had for 37 games. And actually, you have to say it, Martin O'Neill did get a little bit of a tune out of them, probably a little bit like Danny Rule has with Rangers. But does that concern you at all, Martin O'Neill being in there to the end of the season? The man that was kind of called footballing dinosaur at his time at Villa in a few years ago. Does he concern you at all?
Not sure who you were asking there, mate. But
sorry, I was asking Craig. Apologies, but I'll ask you, Richard, first. I'll ask you first, mate.
I think he's going to improve them slightly. To be honest, he's going to show them up and get them probably better defensively. But what I would say is, when he was there, they scraped some victories. I think it was a last-minute goal against St Mirren, things like that. They weren't perfect, but it's different now. Windows open. He might be certain players that he'll be looking to buy that think they can improve until the end of the season. So, unfortunately, I think he is going to improve them. But all we can do is focus on ourselves. We can win this ourselves. Let's not worry about them. To be honest, just focus on Aberdeen, and we'll see what happens with that.
See what happens with that, indeed. Yes, Craig, I'll just come to you. Last question, just in regards to that. Do you think that affects their kind of sign-in policy in the kind of January window? Obviously, they do a bit of a rebuild, but it's not the actual manager in there. Do you think that will change anything?
Potentially, because when they hired Nancy originally, they were expecting him to be their long-term manager. With a long-term plan. Obviously, that's not happening, and I don't see Martin O'Neill taking the job any further than the end of the season. So it might change things slightly, but O'Neill will come in. He'll make them a little bit better. He will make them a little bit more defensively solid, at least. But it's not the end of the world. And plus, you're going to focus on Rangers. Danny Role has done fantastically well. He will continue to push. I did notice a few people in the comments talking about, are we concerned that Hearts and Celtic are making moves in the transfer window when we haven't really done anything yet? I think that if it was the 25th of January, I'd be a little bit concerned, but on the 5th of January, not so much. There'll be players in place that they're looking at. Danny Role said as much, that they're looking at players. They'll continue any approaches that they have made. I'm sure they'll continue to probe on them and try and get them over the line. So I'm not too concerned just now about signings that haven't been made yet, because I'm still certain there's plenty of time for it to come, and I'm certain it will. And we focus on ourselves. We can't really control what other clubs do.
I've just opened Twitter, and it's STV Sport have got an exclusive video of Martin O'Neill spotted in Glasgow having a cup of tea and a crumpet. There you go, like you would do at that age, I guess. But Ryan, did you want to come in there? Obviously, Martin O'Neill, interim manager. We'll touch on it. It is kind of big. It's our rival kind of team. Does this affect things much?
No, there's a call in the comments as well that we can only concentrate on ourselves. But for me, it amplifies how much of an absolute bin fire that's going on across the road. It's if I was a Rangers fan and Rangers lost a manager, and we hired a guy who would basically say this guy's going to be the interim manager for the remainder of the season. There's still 18 games left to go until there. But effectively, for me, if they're actually willing to put a 73-year-old man in until the end of the season, for me, it looks like they've just chucked it. That's the board have chucked it. They've just basically said, look, this guy's going to take it to the end of the season. And when you say things like the end of the season, it makes me think that they think their season's over. As a club, it's mental how negative it is. Instead of saying, right, we're going to try and fix it, we're going to get somebody who's going to come in. The guys at Tidsdale, whatever his name was, sacked as well. Law's out of job, he's walked away. It just reeks of their negativity, and getting Martin O'Neill back in is just something they're going to try and do just to keep their fans happy and try and keep the fans away from their front door. But for me, it just reeks of negativity, and it just hopefully we can take advantage of it.
For me, I'll say I think it's just they're not going to make a quick decision on who they're going to appoint as manager. I think that maybe they're going to evaluate their positions on the board first as well, maybe, because it's it can be quite a volatile place to be in if you are involved there, and you got to think of your family safety, things like that. So it's kind of understandable, maybe. But we've run a little bit just because of that breaking news there. But we have been talking about Yusuf Chermiti and. Obviously, a fantastic game against Celtic. One thing I'll just say is he did say at the end of the game, this is what I work for, this is what everyone works for. If you want to be a big player, you have to play for big clubs and deal with big pressure. And that's what he told Sky Sports after the game. So it definitely seems like he does know what it is like in Glasgow, which some players don't always get. But there we go. Thank you, everyone, in the comments for your comments this evening. And I hope you've had a lovely weekend. I certainly have. And I'd just like to go around everyone to say thanks for coming on the pod this evening, Ryan. Thank you ever so much, mate. An absolute pleasure to have you on as always.
No problem at all, buddy. No problem. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year indeed. And Richard, good to see you as always, pal. Happy New Year to yourself.
And to you, mate. It's been a pleasure, mate.
It has been a pleasure indeed. Actually, when do you stop in Happy New Year? It's the 5th of January now. I don't know. Maybe
After
a couple more
week.
days. After the first week. There we go. That's the unofficial deadline. Well, there you go. Happy New Year, Craig, and thank you for coming on, mate. Hope you enjoyed that result of the weekend, as your grin suggests.
Yeah, Happy New Year to everyone. It was a good one tonight. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's always good to talk about a fantastic win over them in their own backyards. But thank you to everyone in the comments as well. Don't forget, like and subscribe to the Rangers Journal. You can subscribe for members only pods. I was joined on, I think it was Sunday, doing a members only pod going into the Old Firm game, and 99 pence a month, it's 25 pence a week. There's not much better value you'll get than that to join. And if you want to join, head to YouTube, where the Rangers Journal page is. You'll see a little bit next to subscribe which says join. Click on that and it'll give you all the information. And once again, thank you to our proud sponsor, Bluebells in Puerto del Carmen, Lanzarote, the only Rangers bar in Puerto del Carmen. Sun, sea, sand, and Rangers. What more can you need? All I'm going to say now, guys, is every night is a Rangers Journal night. Hopefully the game goes ahead tomorrow. Keep an eye out on the Rangers Journal socials, and you'll be first to know if anything does change. Take care, all. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.